All right, everybody, we've got some Seattle Seahawks breaking news here. We've got a trade, yet another Seattle Seahawk trade, and this is one that I was talking about a little bit in a video just a handful of days ago. I was talking about the possibility of this team looking at their cornerback room and deciding we've got a little too much going on here and we need to clear some room, so let's go exchange one of our extra cornerbacks for an asset. Well, as of this morning, they have done it. Got this article on screen from John Boyle on Seahawks.com. And we did not get a draft pick for Michael Jackson. We actually got a player. And the player in question is a linebacker, which most people would agree that linebacker is, for multiple reasons, a position of need. And the linebacker we got is Michael Barrett. And if that name sounds familiar to you, it's probably because we were talking about him a little bit during the draft. He was just drafted a few months ago. So we got a rookie linebacker for Mike Jackson Sr. So in some ways, we kind of did get a draft pick, except it's a little bit better because instead of an asset in 8 months when the draft kicks off in April, it's an asset that we can use right now. So that's pretty good. Just on the surface level, that's pretty good. So Mike Jackson, pretty good player, right? He played okay as a starter in 2022. 2023, there were some issues. Obviously, the biggest issue was he didn't get to play that much because we got Witherspoon, and I think Jackson was battling some injuries on and off throughout the season. When he did play, however, it was actually pretty good, and I thought he was part of the immediate future for the Seahawks as a depth cornerback who you knew at the very least was a good tackler and good in run support, because who knows what way Woolen was going to go at that time. Well, it looks like Woolen has kind of turned the corner here, at least as an overall player, to the point where you're not really going to think about benching him. You're not going to really think about taking him off the field very much. And because of that, a guy like Mike Jackson becomes a little more expendable versus a guy like Trey Brown, who you're probably looking at as being part of your cornerback trifecta now. He's got a little bit more potential, a little bit more gas there compared to a guy like Jackson, I think would be fair to say. So that's the guy you decide to commit to for 2024, and Mike Jackson becomes the odd man out. So I want to shout out Michael Jackson. His services were, I mean, he was a pretty good player here, man. I liked way more than I disliked about Mike Jackson, but it's time to do something else. What's the something else? So, Michael Barrett, recent draft pick. He was a seventh round pick, so right at the back end of the draft, 240th overall. Almost made it to UDFA. But when I want to be clear about this. When you do draft math, generally speaking, the for every year you push out a draft pick, the draft pick loses a round of value. So when I suggested trading Mike Jackson for like a sixth round pick, which is what I estimated it would probably be worth to move him, then a seventh round pick now, which is what Michael Barrett is basically equivalent to that future sixth round pick. So we got basically the same kind of value I thought we were going to get. We just got it in a slightly different way. So people are going to look at this and go, "Oh man, Michael Barrett, he's not that good. He barely got drafted." But understand that a player in Mike Jackson's position is not going to be worth that much. And realistically, when you're getting a guy who is young, who is on that rookie deal for the next 4 years, you're talking about 4 years of club control versus the 1 year of club control you have on Mike Jackson. It's kind of a it's actually kind of a slam dunk, especially if you have a logjam at cornerback and you have a need at linebacker. But Michael Barrett played at Michigan, didn't do that much over the first 2 years of his career, and then the next 2 years did a little bit more, and then the last 2 years he became kind of a full-time player. Notable, Mike McDonald was the DC at Michigan in 2021, so this guy has some familiarity with Mike Barrett. Now, in 2021, Barrett was not a full-time player, so understand that it's not like he was coaching him and he turned him into like some all Big Ten player, but he does have some familiarity there. That's probably what motivated this trade. The last 2 years, he's been a pretty productive player alongside Junior Colson. And remember, Michigan is so loaded with good defensive players that it's harder to build up your stats because you're competing with so many other really good pieces for it. Like over the last 2 years, you're talking about 72 tackles, 65 tackles, 8.5 for loss, 6.5 sacks, which, hey, that's pretty good. Two interceptions, three forced fumbles last year. So not dominant stats, but given the fact that he's playing on Michigan, pretty good. So monetarily, the trade is a tiny savings, I think. It's pretty minor in the grand scheme of things. Mike Jackson was on a 1 year, 1.05 million, so just over 1 million deal. And Mike Barrett is on a 4 year, $4 million deal, so about $1 million per year. So this first year we've saved probably 100,000, a couple 100,000. So the money part of it is relatively insignificant. What I would say is not insignificant, though, is again, Jackson was going to be gone after this year, almost certainly, because I don't think we can throw any real money at cornerbacks when we have Woolen and Witherspoon coming due in the near future. And Barrett is a guy who could be here for another 4 years at a very cheap rate, very reasonably, and we have the opportunity to develop him long term. So that's where the added boost comes in. Now, Michael Barrett was a player that I looked at a little bit pre-draft. I didn't spend a ton of time on him because he was a relatively low-ranked prospect according to most websites. A lot of websites didn't have him ranked at all. Some that did barely did. The only website that really liked him a lot was PFF. But going back and looking at my initial evaluation of Michael Barrett, what I said was good tackler, should become an excellent special teamer. So, I mean, don't discount the value of that. Remember, we have a new special teams coach, and special teams have changed a little bit this year. He's proven himself capable of man coverage duties as well while at Michigan, so we do have a little bit of stuff going on there. He's a hard hitter, and he covers a lot of ground, so definitely some strong assets. The issues that I had with Barrett were his size. He's very small for a modern linebacker, 5'11", 233 pounds, and not super short arms, but kind of short arms and smaller hands. Not that we're really worried about that, but this is a guy who is certainly undersized by NFL standards. He's a little indecisive when he needs to trigger, so that's something that hopefully can be brought along with coaching. And I do think that there is some stuff there that might just be not necessarily coachable. There's a little bit of indecision there. He gets tunnel vision when chasing a play and can get beat because of it sometimes. There's a little bit of the football IQ stuff that I feel like he didn't show great at Michigan. And he doesn't have tremendous straight line speed. He didn't run at the combine or anything like that. I don't think he had a pro day. So we don't know exactly what his technical straight line speed is, but my initial evaluation was he didn't move all that quickly. So he's got some physical deficiencies and he doesn't have the great decision making to make up for it. So my thought was he likely caps out as a special teamer at the next level with some potential as a cover linebacker on defense. I thought that was probably the best use case for him as a defensive player. Maybe you bring him on passing downs as like a nickel linebacker and let him cover, because it looks like he'll be pretty good in coverage because he is, he's not fast, but he is relatively quick and he does have the ability to chase plays around. And my final take was a 7th rounder, which is what he was, which is what we're getting in the trade back, which that makes sense, right? So that was my evaluation of Barrett at the time. What I can say, however, and this is certainly worth noting, is that we have a little bit of tape on Barrett from the preseason. It's been pretty darn good. So this post from a PFF Seahawks here on X outlines what Barrett has done so far in the preseason. So just to briefly go over it, he's got a really good PFF grade, 81.6, so he's actually been playing good, well-rounded football. His coverage grade is really good, almost 77. Those numbers are 16th among linebackers and 19th among linebackers, which, I mean, that's really good, right? It's the preseason. A ton of guys are playing. There are so many guys out there that are racking up snaps at the linebacker spot. So you're competing against a ton of guys. So to be in the top 20 in overall grade and coverage grade is really good. And he's allowed 4 yards in coverage across his snaps so far, which that's impressive. So he's played well in the preseason so far, and this is why he has trade value. If he wasn't playing well, he would not have that trade value. So Michael Barrett has maybe boosted his stock at least a little bit in the preseason. I don't want to get too excited about preseason stuff, but I mean, again, we're talking about very thin margins here, right? You're not going to trade Mike Jackson for anything amazing, and you're not going to get anything amazing when you trade Michael Barrett. So you have to take a look at the little bit that you got and try to parlay it out. So if Jerome Baker's injury is serious, then Michael Barrett becomes a little insurance policy. Probably you're probably looking at like you're going to start the season hopefully with Baker, Dodson starting. Then you've got Knight and either Radigan or Barrett as like that fourth linebacker. And if it's Radigan, maybe Barrett, you find a way to make him your fifth linebacker, and then you make a sacrifice at another position. I don't know exactly how they're going to do it. Maybe Radigan goes. Maybe we're like, hey, it's preseason stuff. He looks good, but he's still too limited of a player. Maybe Jerome Baker is going to start the season on IR, which would be very disappointing. If so, then you have to go for a few weeks with the four linebackers of Dodson, Barrett, Knight, and Radigan. And then after Baker gets healthy, you got to make a tough decision. But, it'll be at the very least a decision that you're not desperate about because you did something to address the depth situation. All right, so there's the trade. Let me know what you guys think down below. That is the best I can do in terms of a breakdown for the moment on short notice. But let me know what you guys think down below. I'll see you guys later. Go Hawks. I like it. I think it's pretty good. Makes a lot of sense. We needed a linebacker. We needed to clear a cornerback. We did both in one move. All right, see you guys later.